I guess we're like just gonna kind of start if that's cool, because I just like to shoot the shit, and I was so excited to shoot the shit with you. That's what we've been doing the last 5 minutes, anyways.
I love shooting the shit, so let's do it.
Perfect. Okay, because I was so stoked too when I came across your page. Initially, I was like, my girl. Like, this is my kind of girl. She's got her business stuff going. You can tell she's a go-getter, but like she's hunting with her dad, her husband, her son. And then like a week later, I see that you announced you're coming out with a podcast. And I'm like, of course she is. Like,
You're
I
so
was
sweet.
already wanting to talk to her anyways. Perfect place, I feel like, for you to be able to kind of like share your backstory. Because listening to your podcast, you're so great at getting other people's backstories and showcasing them. I'm like, I already wanted to get to know her, but I feel like it'll be a perfect place for you to be able to showcase that for yourself too. So I would love to go back a little bit
Okay.
and get to know Raegan. I know just from looking at social media and then kind of like what we had talked about, you grew up on a hunting ranch. Is that correct?
I did. I grew up more on a gun range than a hunting
Okay.
ranch. Ranch came when I was like about middle school. So
Hmm.
that did have a lot of effect in like how I was raised as well. So I'll take it back even further. And if you want to get deep dive into a little bit more of my background, episode one is my of my podcast is my dad. And
Hmm.
so you can kind of
I
like
love
see
that
where
episode too.
thank you. So it kind of goes into his background, which is a lot of like how I was raised. So my dad's a professional shotgun shooter. I could go through all the titles. It's like 19-time All American, 20-time world champion, like all of the things. I'm super proud. So I will totally just go on and on about all the hard work he put into it. And so he did that since he was a teenager. That's kind of like how the opportunity of Elm Fork shooting sports in Dallas kind of came to fruition. He was shooting, he was a competitor, he was super into the industry. And then the opportunity to rebuild a gun range in Dallas came across, and that's what he did. So since I was little, all I've known is my parents were either taking us to a gun range to go compete, or we were at a gun range rebuilding and fixing it up. And so that's kind of where I came about in the gun range world. And then when I was middle school, I have to go back on look at the year, but somewhere in there, that's where they invested into the side by side hunting ranch. And he goes into the story of how it kind of came and grew to what it is now. But now it's a high fence hunting ranch, mainly focusing around night vision hog hunting. It's in around a little outside of Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. So about an hour south of Oklahoma City and an hour and a half north of Dallas. So
Okay.
kind of right in the middle. So
Interesting.
yeah. And then from there, it's just I feel like keeps going.
Just keeps going and going. Wait, are you in Utah then?
I am. Yeah.
Okay, I
So
was wondering that.
yeah, so
So how'd
born
you go from Texas to Utah?
I got married.
Love.
Yep. Yep, love will do that to you. Well, that and I had a friend. So I graduated high school and I went to a school in Texas for a year, like first college, whatever. And then after that first year in Texas, I just was like, I don't know if this school is really for me. And so my best friend ended up calling me and was like, I'm going to Utah State. I just broke up with my high school boyfriend. I'm so sad. So we had family friends that had lived in Utah our whole life. So I'd been to Utah a couple of times throughout my life. And so when she called me, she's like, I'm heartbroken. I was like, I'll go to college or I'll come see you for a weekend. Like we'll make it a girls trip. It's fine. And I went to Utah State for the weekend and I fell in love with it. Like Utah State in Logan is an awesome place for like I think a college experience. Like the college is like on the mountain. I could take a snowboarding class, like things that you would not be able to do in Texas.
Yeah.
And so I ended up just applying for school and I moved 2 weeks after that girls trip and went to Utah State. I've transferred schools 5 times. So I've have like a lot, but I ended up graduating with a bachelor's in experiential design. I met my husband kind of through Utah State. We didn't go to Utah State at the same year as we just met through a mutual friend.
Hmm.
And when I was back home working on the range after I graduated and got my associates, we did long distance for like 10 so months, and then we got engaged, and then when we got married I officially like moved to Utah. So I've been in Utah for about 5 or 6 years.
Okay. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering because all of a sudden I was listening to, um, oh, and I forget her name, Annika,
Yeah,
uh,
Annika. Uh-huh.
Annika. I was listening to that, and then I got towards the end, and it was after you and I had already like set up everything. I'm like, I think she's in Utah. Like, what?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
small world. We'll have to
Yep.
get together and do a in-person one for sure.
Yes, you'll have to come down.
Yes, would love to. I know your studio is gorgeous.
It is a work in progress. So it always will be, but you know what? That's kind of why I started the podcast. I wanted to try something where I would get out of my comfort zone. And I'm sure that you can relate with this, like being a mom who um I want to have these conversations and I want to do something like entrepreneurial. And so my husband kind of pushed me to do the podcast, but it's kind of my outlet to like just talk to people and have that time and get to hear their stories. And I love talking to people. So yeah, we'll have to have you come on down, and but it's definitely a work of progress. But I think that's the beauty of it is, I mean, it makes me excited to fail and it makes me excited to like bring people along the journey. And my husband keeps saying, he's like, you should have waited until it was all ready. And I'm like, but I didn't want to. I wanted to just like dive in head first, and people can follow the journey as it progresses. I don't need to make it perfect yet. It'll just grow and evolve and change.
I'm curious too, like, I know you wanted to go in to have these conversations. Did you know exactly like what kind of conversations you were wanting to have?
No, and so when I was trying to, so I talked about doing a podcast for a really long time,
Hmm.
and it wasn't until our anniversary in November, my husband's like, "When are you gonna do that podcast? You keep talking about it, but you're never gonna do it." And I was like, "Oh, it's just imposter syndrome gets in the way." And then you're like, "Do I really want to like fork out the investment to do something that you don't know if you would be good at?" And he ended up getting me the microphones and the bass or whatever for our anniversary gift. And he's like, "Hey, I believe in you. I think you can do this." And I was like, "That's so sweet." So he's kind of the one that really pushed me to do it.
Like now you
And
have to.
yeah, now I have to. Like, are you kidding? So it's really all because of him that I'm doing this. And it just takes like that one person to believe in you and like help push you to do something, I think sometimes. So when I was trying to figure out what I wanted the podcast to be, so originally I was like, I'm an event planner, right? So events is what I know. It's my profession. It's what I do. It's how I make a living. And so I was like, oh, we'll do it about events and I'll talk about like behind the scenes. And then I was like, but that limits the niche so small, and not everybody, it's kind of like a stage, or it's kind of like theater sometimes in events. Like you just want to see the production. You don't necessarily want to see the behind the scenes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I didn't want to limit it. And I was like, but you know what? I do meet so many cool people. And so let's just call it Ready to Rain. And we'll just talk to people about whatever they're ready to do, like what gets them excited and out of bed and excited to just accomplish their goals. And it was a way for me to get my friends to come over and say hi. So it's been fun to explore. I don't know where it's going to take me. It's really just a passion project for right now. So open to see wherever it takes me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I
So
think that's fantastic. And you have to just start, and that's how you're going to learn. Because if perfectionism can hold you back so much, and like it'll never be good enough, and you're always learning, there's always something new coming out and a new way to do something too.
yeah. So how long have you been doing your podcast?
Well, mine's been quite the doozy. It's been quite the journey. I started it in 2020, right?
Okay.
And I started it as like my passion, my project. And then everyone knows how 2020 went. And I was in the online service base. So my business just boomed when it came to services online because everybody was now working from home. So it kind of like took the back burner for a really long time. And then slowly over the years, I got to where I was doing it like monthly and then bi-weekly, and now we're getting to where we're finally like weekly episodes. So, yeah, cuz it was, I was like, where do I go with this? How do I do it? And same thing. It's evolved. It started off with like the name Grit and Grace, which is Like,
Cute.
cute, but, like, me to a T, not necessarily reckoning so much more me, and it was starting out more, like, business-based, getting to
Mhm.
talk to a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, and then I'm like, "But I'm missing the hunting and outdoors and beauty aspect of it all, like,
Yeah,
just the
your life.
outdoor lifestyle." Yeah, and so it's same thing, it's evolved, and I've learned, and yeah, so
That's so fun.
it's, like, such a journey, yeah.
It is, dude. But hey, like, you never know where it's going to take you. And if it's something that you enjoy doing, then go for it.
Totally. I know. I'm like, I would never get to have these conversations. And like through this, I've met one of my best friends and I would have never guessed that. You know what I mean? It's so crazy the conversations you can have and like what doors open from
By
this.
yeah, by putting yourself out there and yeah.
Hmm. Totally. I would love to go back though a little bit because you mentioned Texas and growing up. Do you have a first experience outdoors that you vividly remember?
See, that's really, really hard because I was in a duck blind like 3 weeks old.
Oh,
So, like,
nice.
yeah, it's kind of, I think, I don't remember. I hunting is what I know, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the only lifestyle that I was raised around. Like everybody when we would travel all over the place and everybody's like, "Oh, you must have horses." And I'm like, "No, we put all of our money into guns and hunting, you know?" So there's only so many hobbies that you can pick up I think at a
Yes.
time. So I yeah, like growing up, we had, I was raised in Texas, so it's completely different than Utah hunting,
Mm.
which I didn't learn big game hunting until, or Utah style mountain hunting
Yes.
until I moved to Utah. And I am still learning, okay? There's so much to learn and I'm willing to learn it, but I grew up, mainly bird hunting. We have the dove hunt every year. We did a lot of ducks. We had a lease, so we would go deer hunting. I don't remember shooting too many deer, but I do remember sitting in a blind for the majority of my childhood. Like my dad would come pick me up early from school, and we would drive an hour and a half to Marietta, and go sit in a blind from 3 o'clock till the evening, and that was my after school activity was hunting. So, I was kind of raised to hunt and raised to shoot. I think now that I'm older, I think I definitely took it for granted.
Mm.
I wish I soaked it in a little bit more. I feel like when I was a kid, I just thought that's like what everybody did. I kind of did. I remember like kind of keeping it more quiet when I was like in elementary school or middle school because girls don't do that. They
Mhm.
don't hunt, they don't fish, they're not outdoorsy. So I do remember like trying to be a little bit quiet about it and then till I learned really why I loved it. And then I got really into it when I was probably more in college, I would say. And I think it's really just cuz it helps me spend a lot more time with my family and my dad when I was in college. I think when you're in high school, you're just like, you kind of do your own thing. And then, but yeah, I remember our deer hunts, I remember our duck hunts, but big game hunting wasn't like really a thing until probably I was college. So,
Were you big game hunting in Texas or here in Utah?
so my actual first big game, so I say big game. I'm thinking like elk, so that's not technically right because we would do deer. Like we did a lot of whitetail hunting when I was younger. Not so much mule deer, more whitetail. My parents have gone all over. They've gone hunting way more than I have. Probably mainly because my dad was a shooter, and then he had the hunting show. He did Wild and Raw on the Outdoor Channel with Marcus Luttrell. I think if we went back in the records, I have an episode in there of me
Really?
shooting a buck. I think it's really rough, so I don't even know where that would be. It's probably, but so they've gone over, but it wasn't until like my first elk was when I was in college. We did Colorado. Um, I've hunted more in Colorado than I have Utah. So, um, and I think that's mainly because we just don't draw tags in Utah.
Mhm.
Tags are super tough, and I I still don't even understand the tag system. I wish I knew more. I kind of get the gist of it. Um, but yeah, I'm obviously not that good because I'm not drawing deer or elk in Utah. I think we usually just get like the over-the-counter archery, and then we usually draw out for muzzleloader in Colorado. So that's where we go.
Fun. Yeah. I wondered if that's what it was, is just because of the draw too, because it gets
Yeah,
harder and harder.
it's way tough.
Yeah. I get frustrated when I hear, like, when I talk to all my friends out of state and I'm like, you get to hunt what? Like every year and it's still
Yeah.
going?
Yeah, tags are I definitely um recommend going through like my husband really understand and his dad, they understand the tag system way better than me. So like I have them to kind of like help lean on, and they help put in points and everything. But no, we mainly do Colorado, and even then we do muzzleloader. One because it's pretty. I've really grown to love muzzleloader, um,
Okay.
but also because you can draw.
Yeah.
So
This is also true. Yeah.
this is yeah.
Especially with the scope changes. You mentioned the shooting range. Were
Mhm.
you worked there in high school or after college?
Yeah, so I was free labor until I think I graduated. You know, when you become an adult. Just
Yeah.
kidding. Yeah, no, I've worked there my whole life. So I was there when I was like 8 years old. I was out there, pulling five stand for guys. Or when I was, all growing up, like there'd be certain situations where like the range would flood and we'd go out there and fix all the equipment. But it wasn't until like I really started work there in college. After I got my associate's degree, I didn't really know where where I wanted my career to go. And so what happened is I got my associate's degree, but I did a study abroad. And the study abroad showed me experiential design. And so I did a study abroad. We went to Europe. We went to 17 countries in 3.5 months, 23 girls and 2 boys.
Oh my gosh. Huh.
Crazy trip, so fun. Highly recommend doing a study abroad. But that study abroad opened me up to experiential design. Um, but it was just a really big trip. And so that concluded my associate's degree. So after that, my parents were like, why don't you just come home for a minute, take a reset, figure out where you want to go, and work at the range? And so I was like, okay, I'll work at the range. So I ended up becoming the event manager or doing all the events. So we were doing over 300 corporate and charity events a year, um, all in shotgun, rifle, and pistol. So we were having people from we were doing regional sporting clays tournaments with 2,000 people who were experienced and pro shooters to, I'm doing a corporate event for 20 people with people who have never even touched a gun, right? So the good thing about the gun range in Dallas is it's literally in the heart of Dallas. It's like 15 minutes from Love Field Airport and 15 minutes from DFW Airport. It's actually one of the last remaining like urban clubs. There's not very many gun ranges that are actually in a city, and this one is located and it's public. So you're able to shoot rifle, shotgun, and pistol like 10, 15 minutes from any convention center. So when people come to Texas, the two things that they want to do when they come to Texas, they want to get some good barbecue and they want to shoot some guns. So
Yeah.
where else do you go to get some good barbecue and shoot some guns? You go to Elm Fork Shooting Sports, you take your clients out there. And so I was like so integrated with like teaching people and training people and doing safety and running events. Some days we would do 2 or 3 events a day. Some days it would be like one event, but it's 2,000 people. Like, so we were just turning and burning these events. And that's really what pushed my love into event planning. I loved the idea of just like picking a date, everybody coming, everybody enjoying their time, and then everybody can disperse and just have these good memories. So I was super integrated into the gun range for about a year or two.
Mhm.
Uh, well, more like a year and a half to 2 years. And then that's when I met Austin and moved closer to him, and we got married. I'm still very heavily involved. I probably go home like once or twice a month. If there's like a really big event at the ranch, I'll definitely go and help with that. I do some social media stuff, and my dad's asked me to help with some marketing things on those sides. But it's a great facility. We have like instructors there. We have almost every discipline. If you wanted to learn how to shoot, it's a great facility to learn. We have 5 stands, sporting clays, traps, ski. We have the steel bays. We have the 50-yard. I think the range in Dallas only goes up to 100 yards, but the ranch, I think we have like 1,000-yard range. So yeah.
Wow. That, like, what better way to learn event planning too? You're like baptism by fire.
Baptism by fire. And I think too, it's way more elevated when you bring in the 2A community, right? Because I think it's
Mhm.
one thing, like I've done a couple of weddings, and it's one thing to do a wedding and have to deal with, drunk groomsmen. But it's
Yeah.
another thing when you're hosting an event at a facility with guns and people who you have to teach not only like event safety, but you have to teach, gun safety and what are the rules to keep everybody safe and what, a new skill. And so I think adding the element to doing events at a gun range completely heightens it because you're worried about safety 100% of the time
Yeah,
in education.
for sure. Yeah. So how does that then lead you? Because you said from the shooting range to BRCC. How does that
Yes.
opportunity come in? I mean,
So
obviously, like, the worlds intertwine, but it's like, wow.
yeah. So I actually didn't know what Black Rifle Coffee Company was before I started, which is probably a good thing because it really forced me to do my research on a company that I was going to work for. So I moved away from the range because I got married and I finished my schooling. And when I was graduating, I told my husband, I was like, I want to work for, if I have to work for another company that's not a family business, I want to work for something that makes a difference. I want to work for somewhere that, I'm passionate about and I shouldn't have to care about the paycheck. I'm literally caring about the passion and the purpose behind what I'm doing. Like that's my big goal. And I knew I was really good at events. I studied experiential design, so event planning, hospitality, business, they were kind of all intermingled. And so I didn't really know what it was going to be, but there was about 8 months before I graduated, 2 semesters before I graduated, whatever. I saw an application for or a job opening at Black Rifle for social media. And I was like, I'm pretty good with social media. I can capture content. Like that wouldn't be hard. I said, if anything, if I get into the social media, it gets me into because they didn't have any positions open for event planning. And so I was like, if I join the social media team, it gets me involved to get involved with events, do networking, whatever. Um, the social media didn't end up happening, but about 2 weeks before I graduated, a event planning an event manager position open at Black Rifle. And I was like, I'll apply. And I didn't know why I was applying. I just had like this gut instinct, like you should apply. This would be a great company to work for. Again, I didn't know much until I was doing like the internships or for the social media interviews, you had to like create pages and prove to them. Like I had to do like a very intense um, basically prove to them that I could do the job. I had to create a page, I had to do a certain amount of posts, I had to like do the captions, I had to like do all this stuff. Anyway, the social media wasn't my plan. I got the event manager job and I was wondering why it took so long, but it was because they were going public and they were having these like hiring pauses. And so they couldn't hire me until January. So I had to wait a little bit. And then come January, they hired me. And my first event working with Black Rifle was actually SHOT Show. And I had gone to SHOT Show before and, I'd gone probably 4 or 5 times before, never with a company, mainly because of the range. And my first event was SHOT Show. And I just put myself out there. I like hustled. I did everything that I could to like prove them that like yes, I can do events and I can do this. And we get done with SHOT Show and they call me the next week and they're like, "Hey, you did really good. Now you have to plan the bell ringing in 2 weeks. So we were going public in 2 weeks. So I had 2 weeks to plan the bell ringing, and we replicated the bell ringing in San Antonio because not everybody could go to New York because COVID and the shots and all the stuff. They only had like a certain amount of people. So I replicated the event within 2 weeks, did a custom bell with Grizzly Forge, got all the people out, got everything organized, and it literally hasn't slowed down since then.
Just one thing after another.
One thing after the other. I mean, Black Rifle is like amazing. I've gotten to do so many philanthropy events, so many give back events. Like anytime we do an event, if it has to be a trade show, if it has to be an expo, if it has to be, something because you have to do it, we look at a reason, what can we do to give back to that community, whether it's like supply drops at the local fire stations or police stations, but also at this point, I don't think there's an event that I haven't touched with Black Rifle. Like I've done warehouse sales, I've done, the Mills for Military with Operation Homefront, I've done grand openings. And so it's just really taught me to just dive into every single opportunity and take it and run with it and make it your own. And, there's going to be a lot of bridges or red tape that you have to cross. But, if you can do it with a smile, you can keep going. Like you never know what opportunities are going to come and what you can be a part of. So
I think it's super inspirational to hear that too, because it is such, especially like in the outdoor space, people are very familiar with Black Rifle Coffee. And just to hear that you like believed in yourself enough to take those chances and push through, because
yeah,
life's scary.
It is scary. And, I had to really prove myself all the way through it. And there's a lot of things that, imposter syndrome or, sometimes you're not part of the club and that's okay, or whatever it is. But I think at the end of the day, if you believe in yourself and you're willing, I think you have to be willing to work hard for it, and you have to be willing to grind. Like you have to, especially doing the events with coffee, we were there twice as long as everybody else, because if we were going to go to a total archery challenge and serve hot coffee for everybody at 6 a.m. before registration starts, that means we have to start the coffee at 2 a.m., right? So we're up at 2 a.m. brewing coffee to get to the facility at 6 a.m. And then we're there to hang out with everybody and have a great time until the end of the night. But then we have to go home and clean everything up and start, get it prepped to rebrew the coffee at 2 a.m. the next day. So, I think if you're willing to grind and willing to put in the work, like you can have some really cool opportunities come. But you have to be willing to put in a little bit of suck to to get really cool experiences out of it.
Is there like a scenario that you can think of where you had an event and you were like, holy shit, how am I going to fix this? Like something didn't go right? Or was it like that quick turnaround of doing the 2-week bell ringing? Where you're just like, I did it. I don't know. Like I knew I could, but like, whoa, I actually did it.
Oh, all the time. Okay, so here's the thing. If you're ever going to do events, you have to be prepared for everything to go wrong. And it's your job to plan all the contingencies and the 100 backup contingencies. But it's also like things are going to go wrong. That's events, right? Like if you want to learn by fire, like go get an event position somewhere, because things are going to go wrong in events. It's going to happen. And I think at the end of the day, it's you have to decide how you're going to react when those things happen, right? You can either you need to make the decision beforehand. If something does go wrong, I'm going to, one, take a breath, and then two, we're going to figure out how to fix the problem as a team, right? Because things are going to go wrong, and it's either it's going to go wrong and you're going to put a smile on your face, or it's going to go wrong and you're going to make it miserable for everybody else. I think one of the craziest events that we pulled off, I would say, is the warehouse sale. We did a huge warehouse sale, and just managing the inventory and managing all the people and trying to get all the logistics for that.
Was it people coming into the warehouse?
No, so here's the thing with the warehouse sale, we did it outside.
Oh.
So we had, I think 4 or 5 pallets of items to sell, and we had to do it all outside, but how they got in was a mess. Um, but our team rallied and it was great. Like, I think the thing is, like, as long as you have a good team and you have proper timing to execute something, I think you'll be great. But we needed a little bit more time, and I think we would have been good. But yeah.
That is so cool to hear. I love it. Because I think too, there's a lot of, you hear BRCC and you know the events that they put on and you've seen their booths at the expos and stuff like that. But there's so many companies out there, even just people creating communities that want to get together on a Saturday and do a fundraiser for someone. That
Yeah.
can feel daunting.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, when you talk like bigger logistics, like the holiday meals for military that I just did with Operation Homefront, I think that was like the most, well, not the most, because I've had other like, hmm, that one was just a little bit more special to me because that one was so near and dear to my heart. Like, so for the holiday meals for military, we partnered with Operation Homefront to give 100 local military families, like, fill their pantries for the holiday season, because food insecurity affects 1 in every 4 military service members or military families. And so food insecurity is a huge issue. And so, we saw this problem and I was like, how do we help combat this, right? Like, yes, we can give coffee, yes, we can give checks, but like, what else can we do to really help and make our military families seen and heard and feel like we're there for them and we're in their corner? And so Operation Homefront hosts this holiday meals for military event, and we teamed up with them, and I'll have to send you some pictures. You probably could see it in my Instagram, the video, but we rallied and we got 10 companies to like join in and give back these families. And like, typically, you could give like a bag or two, like based on your sponsorship, but we were able to like fill these trucks and fill the back of these minivans, and these moms just be like, "Oh my God, thank you. Like, you guys are hearing me and you're seeing me and I'm able to feed my kids through the holidays, and it's like super tough right now." And so it's like those moments that like really make it worth it to, you know, that's why I do my job, and I love Black Rifle because they give me the opportunity to make a difference and give back, and band together and like, call companies that would help. Like Coca-Cola donated a pallet of waters, and um like Clean Freak donated a bunch of like wipes for the families, and Renewal by Anderson, they donated they got the spaghetti kit, so every family walked away with a big bag of like spaghetti and pasta and parmesan and all of the things to make them feel like grateful. So it's like we got to team up with these companies who were like helping us give back, and that's the point of like why, you know yes, Black Rifle does things because it's quality coffee, but they do it for the community. And I think that's why I love working for them, because it gives me the opportunity to get involved with the community.
Yeah.
So,
What a full circle moment because that's what you said you were looking for and you were able to find that.
yeah, yeah. So I'm grateful like every day because you know, I prayed for it and it happened. So be careful, cuz if you start praying, the Lord's going to give you some answers.
Boy, do I know it. I'm like, okay, not exactly what I was thinking, but got it.
I know I do that in the woods too. I'm like, please let a big buck come, please.
Where do you think you're like, did you grow up giving back? Or where do you think you like love getting involved with the community? Because not everybody is like that.
I definitely think it's something that my parents taught me at a very young age. So my family's not military. I have aunts and uncles and I have grandparents that were, but we were fortunate enough to, in my dad's line of work, meet a lot of military members or meet a lot of people that taught me what it took to really be an American and be a patriot. My parents always taught me that service, like it was just something my parents told us to do, is to give back and take care of other people. And, I grew up knowing it, but I don't think until I really started putting it to work or like doing the things on my own that I really realized what it meant to do service and like how good it feels when like you can make someone's day or like, you know, to me, like it's, I just give a bag of coffee to somebody because like that's my work, but like to them that's like no, that's helping me through my really hard time. It's helping me like through this transition or, I don't know. It doesn't take a lot to like give somebody kindness and sometimes that's all that people need, but I don't know, maybe because I've received a lot of service and I've received a lot of kindness that it's like I want to give that back too.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Well, and I'd
it's
imagine that now in the line of work that you're in too, you see the impact at a much greater level.
yeah, yeah, and it's definitely contagious. Like when you start getting involved with your community or you first witness like that kindness or you first witness like what it feels to like help somebody, you want to do it more. Like it's so contagious.
What do you have any? Well, I'm sure because I know the hunting expo is coming up and you guys have been deep in it's like show season, baby. Do you have any big events that you're really excited about that you've got coming up that you're working on?
Yeah, so we're actually changing the strategy a little bit. So we used to activate at a lot of trade shows and a lot of expos. And though I think it's great, um, my passion does live in the philanthropy world.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. We have some things in the works that are just more community engagement like based. And so I'm really excited to really just focus and hone in more on those experiences.
Hmm.
Um kind of like holiday meals for military where we're creating the opportunity for our community to get involved, right?
That's what I was
Like
going to ask.
yes, and that's what I'm pushing harder than anything. I'm like, "Hey, we could go to an expo and serve coffee and you guys could learn more." Do I think we need to do that? No, I think that we need to like be the example and we're going to create the spaces for the community to get involved. And so I have some things that are in the works that are a little bit more focused like that. Not so much of the shows, not so much the expos or, we were doing NASCARs or we were doing the Cowboys games. And though I love supporting our partners, and I think that is, we will still do what we need to when we can. But my focus is shifting more to how can I do more holiday meals for military? Can we do a 5K? We're supporting Operation Homefront and their Military Child of the Year. We're like sponsoring building homes from some military veterans who, can't do it on their own. So, like to me it's more philanthropy focused. It's more how do we get back with our community? How do we provide that opportunity for our community to give back? And so that's what I'm focused on.
I really love hearing that too. And like as a customer, that makes me excited because we see so many times all the philanthropy work that's being done. And it's like, that looks so fun. And like, my kids would love to get involved and we'd love to be able to give back. So to hear that, like, it's going to raise that opportunity for other families to come and help and do, I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you're an American, you're a patriot. You want to put your money where you believe, right? And
Mhm.
so you want to support companies who are making a difference and are giving back. And so as an event planner, I do my part, right? Like I don't have a full say in everything that happens. But I do have a say in my little world and in the event world. And that's my goal. And that's what I will try to do every day because that's why I started there. So
No, and I think people don't, unless you've gone and helped at an event, like, people do not realize all the behind the scenes, what it takes to get the stuff to the place on time, the vendors, the timing, the setup.
yeah.
People just do not know or appreciate that.
No, and I say that all the time. Like, and honestly, you will never understand what it takes to put on an event until you do it. And I honestly think if you want to learn how to like fast track on how do you run a business, go work a couple of events, right? Like that's also why I loved events, is because I get to work with every single department, right? It's not like I'm like, nothing against anybody else. And this is my personality. So this is why events work for me. I like it because I get to work with so many people. I get to work with finance. I get to work with logistics. I got to learn how the security guards manage things. I got to understand how catering works, how they need to get their numbers. Like I understand what it takes to work with a union. Understand what it takes to work with a venue, right? And so like I love it because I am a social person. And so
I was
I
gonna
get,
ask.
yes, I always tell everybody I'm the biggest extroverted introvert or introverted extrovert, whatever. Like I am an extrovert probably to the core. I love being extroverted, but when I'm not in event mode and I'm home, I like to be introverted. Like no
Yeah.
one talk to me.
Recharge my battery.
Yes, yes. But I think it's taught me so many skills on um relationship skills, leadership skills, business skills, finance skills. Like events teaches you every single aspect, right? And so that's why I love it, and I love the inner workings of it. I don't know why. I'm such a nerd when it comes to events.
Are you like type A too? Do you like to have all your, I would assume, like ducks in a row? Or are you like spontaneous?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I need to probably take a test because sometimes I feel like I don't know what I am. I feel like I would be type A, but I don't know.
You're like a fun type A. I'm not saying you're like not fun because you're extroverted and fun, but like I would think you would have to be to make sure that everything's
Yeah,
going
and
smooth.
I am a little OCD when it comes to certain things. But I would also say like I'm also an event, so you have to be sporadic. You
Yeah.
have to let things like you can't sometimes you can't force experiences. And I think that's
Mm,
a big thing that I've learned. Like you can't force a moment. You can't force an experience. You can't force a memory because sometimes it needs to be authentic and you need to let it be authentic. So you can kind of structure the bones and the skeleton of what the event is going to look like, but you need to leave a lot of room for people to create the moments and let it be authentic at the same time. Does
that
that make
is
sense?
that is really good advice. No, that is amazing because it is true. I even like even just sometimes on my birthday or something. It's like I set up this like weird expectation and then if it's not met then like I'm bummed out, but like you had a beautiful day. You know what I mean? Something
Yes.
as silly as that. Like a lot of times even people just set up expectations for memories to be made on a family trip or something.
Yes, right?
But you've
And
got to
same
lean into it.
like with the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like the first one or two, I like sent a structured conversation and I was like, this is how it's gonna go. And they came back and they're like, you need to let the conversation just like go where the conversation's gonna go. I'm like, okay, so don't structure it. Okay. So I mean, it's that fine balance of
Yeah,
like, you can structure your birthday party, but you also need to like leave room for the campfire talks, and let them go
totally.
where they need to go.
Yeah. No, that's such solid advice. In the midst of all this, you became a mom
I did. Yeah.
to a little boy. Is that right?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been wild. It's definitely added a lot more to my plate than I ever thought, but it's been really fun. So he turns 1 this month.
Oh,
I
my
know.
mama heart for you.
I know. Well, how old are your littles?
13 and 8.
You don't even look like you have a 13-year-old.
Oh,
Holy
well, that's nice. You think. We're
glowing.
already friends. You don't have to be nice. I'm just kidding.
Um Yeah, everybody always told me before I had a kid or when I was super pregnant, they're like, it's gonna go by so fast, hold it all. But it is really crazy how time is so different when you actually have a kid. Time is so different.
Yeah.
So
I don't
yeah,
know where 13 years went.
we had him a year ago. So he's gonna be a year this month, which is really sad, but it's been really fun. I mean, that kid has done more in his last year than most people do their whole entire life. And honestly, I'm jealous. So that was kind of me and my husband's goal. We were like, we want to do as many adventures as we can and get him in every opportunity that we can, because that's really going to set the course for how we raise him for, the next however long. And though he won't remember his first deer hunt or his first dove hunt, or, he won't remember his first camping trip, like I will. And his little scrapbook will. And, it'd be like, hey, this is ingrained in you. Like, this is who you are. You might not remember it now, but it'll be like who you are, because you are adventurous and you deserve to be in the outdoors and learn all about it. And I want to give him those opportunities. So it's been really fun to see him like grow up and learn to be a person. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
but
that's so smart that you guys went in with that intention too. It's just like you're not gonna adapt life around him. Like you're along for the ride, buddy.
yeah. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, you can look at my stories and I probably shouldn't, I don't know, like he's strapped to me the whole time. Like I'm going. And I think that's like, I don't know, it depends on what mom's looking, but me, I'm a busybody and I like to be out and doing things, and it fuels my soul when I'm out and doing things. And so he has to take a nap anywhere. So if he's going to take a nap in his crib and I can sit there on the couch and wait for him to wake up, or I can strap him on my backpack and he can take a nap while I'm, cutting posters, or, getting on an airplane, or, doing whatever, like I'll take him with me. So yeah, definitely like that was my biggest thing, is like I didn't want to adapt to him. I wanted him to adapt to me. But with that being said, there is also grace. Like I know when I'm going to push him too far, or I know when like, hey, like I really do want to go do this, but like this weekend my husband went and took his truck out to ride with some buddies or whatever, and I was like, hey, like you go, like it's okay if you go and do your thing, like I'll stay home. He needs time to rest, and he needs time to reset, because he had like he got sick like the week before, so
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure he was ready. And so I think there's a balance, and your mama intuition kicks in, knowing when, like, you know even though we like to go all the time, when it's like, hey, I also need to give him that balance of like resting.
for
So
sure. Yeah. No, and you learn that too over time, definitely. Because every
yeah,
kid's different also.
yeah,
Yeah. Like I have two, and they're definitely brothers, but they still have their own personalities and own needs. And yeah, you learn that. You have talked about kind of like your fitness journey a little bit on your podcast, which I
gosh.
loved hearing.
Yeah, that's a journey.
It's always a journey, especially, you're a mom. You just had a baby only a year ago. I know it probably feels quick and a long time all at the same time, especially when it comes to your fitness.
Dude, I'll just be completely transparent about it, because I think nowadays society like really tells you how your body should be or how you should feel after having a baby. And I think I've definitely gone through the ringer, and I am not a professional athlete. Okay. So I was never a D1 athlete. I'm not a professional athlete. I'll say that. I'm an active person. I like to work out. I like to take care of my body, but am I a pro athlete? No. But I did CrossFit for a long time, so I said that. And then about 6 months before I got pregnant, my body was just completely. I think I just burnt myself into the ground from doing 200 to 300 events a year and doing CrossFit and not fully recovering, not knowing what like recovery was really, or what it took to like rest. And so I switched to Pilates. And I think since then I've been a Pilates girly. And I love more of the lower impact but still the high workout. So he's the first grandbaby on both sides. And so I am the oldest and I have two younger brothers, and then Austin has two younger sisters. But I don't have anybody like close to me that has had a baby. So the only person that I knew that had had a baby was my mom, right? And so like going into like pregnancy and learning all about the body, like I got it from Instagram and I got it from Google and I bought the books and I read about the things, but I literally knew nothing. Okay. And I still know nothing. I will say that. But I had like one friend that, had a baby that I could ask, but I'm not surrounded by a lot of women. And I think especially in like the hunting and outdoor space, I'm not surrounded by a lot of girls.
Mhm.
And so I didn't really grow up with a lot of girlfriends, which is totally fine because I was always the tomboy and I was always hanging out with the guys and
Same.
yeah, right?
Mhm.
So when it came to being a mom and doing this super feminine thing that we were made to do, I didn't know very much about it. I didn't know anything. And so I learned a lot. And then with that, my body weight, like I always would feel so guilty. And every time I went to the doctor, I'm like, are you sure there's nothing wrong with me? Because, they would be like, oh, 10, 15 pounds is all you have to gain when you have a baby. And every time I went back to the doctor, I was gaining so much weight to where the day that I had him, so when I found out I was pregnant, I was 145 pounds. Like I was doing Pilates, I was eating healthy. I was like, oh, I'm in a groove. And then I got
Yeah.
pregnant.
Yeah.
And then the day that I had him, I was 240 pounds. So my body gained 100 pounds over pregnancy.
Oh.
And so you had like the weight that was heavy.
Yep.
Then you have like your hormones are all messed up. And then, I also had the thing of like none of my clothes fit me. So I was buying like a new wardrobe every month because it was like, you're getting bigger, you're getting bigger, you're getting bigger. And then I had him and he's the cutest, healthiest thing. So I will take all the weight if that means he's healthy. But then it was the postpartum journey. And I had no one teach me about it. Everything that you see on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever is like back to the gym at 3 weeks, right? And
Mhm.
so I was like, okay, like I can do that. Like I can do back at the gym at 3 weeks. So I did something really stupid and I went to hot Pilates 3 weeks postpartum. And I knew nothing about my core. I knew nothing about what it meant to heal. I
And
knew
your
nothing.
body is still healing so much at that point.
So much, but I think my mental off of not being able to really work out for 9 months, I was just so ready. Like mentally, I was like my CrossFit mind was like, "Yes, you can do this." Like my Pilates mind was like, "Yeah, you got this."
Yeah.
Um, not realizing that I needed to take more care of my body and let it heal. And I didn't understand that postpartum journey. Um, and because to me, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm 240. Like, I'm 100 pounds more than I was. Like, I got to start burning this off if I'm going to be able to see people in with this. I don't know."
Well, at
And so,
that point too, like I was 60, 70 pounds more than normal. And like I just felt I'd look in the mirror and I didn't even know who I was looking at. Like I felt like I was inside of a different person.
yeah, yeah, it,
It's a mind F.
it's a mind F. Like, to see the scale and to look in the mirror and then to look, to even try on the clothes. And you're like, I can't even put on jeans. I can't even wear my husband's hoodies because I'm outgrowing my husband's hoodies. Like to go from such a high fitness life in 9 months to gaining 100 pounds to like, and I was still so active during my pregnancy. I was going to cycling classes 2 or 3 times a week. I was in a cycling class 3 days before I had him. Like I was still so active and it didn't matter how active I was or how active I wasn't. I still gained so much weight. Um, and then I breastfed for like 3 months. I just didn't have the supply, and some people have way more supplies. I felt a little bit mom guilt at first that, like, oh, I can't breastfeed and natural, whatever.
Yeah.
But, he got what he needed. And I think once I stopped breastfeeding and the weight kind of came off.
I wasn't the breastfeeding you get skinny mom.
Yeah.
I don't know who made up that lie.
Yeah. There's a ton of lies. And, honestly, like I told my husband, we were driving to the hospital and I was like, I don't remember if it was driving to the hospital when I had my scare that I thought I was coming, or when we were having him. But I was like, for how much they know about pregnancy and know about science and birth and all these things, they really know nothing. And it is because like every woman is so different,
Oh yeah.
right? And it's just interesting. So the human body is insane. It's crazy. I mean, since then, I mean, he's turning a year and I'm down like 90 pounds. Like, so it's crazy. I think I'm sitting at like 155 or something now. So my body, birthed this baby and like went through the ringer. And then I think it's also been a lot to shoot up 100 pounds and shoot down 80 pounds in 18 months. Like, that is so crazy. And that is so hard on my joints and my muscles. And like, I think the biggest thing through all of it is I really had to give myself grace. Like, I really had to let the ego go and be like, you cannot do this full pull up. You need to do this. Or understanding like I did go to CrossFit. I tried CrossFit again at like 8 weeks postpartum. And thank goodness, like most of the girls in that CrossFit or most of the people in that CrossFit gym are women who've had babies. And I literally had Heather sit down with me and she was like, I know that you really want to do this, but your abs will not come back together, or they will not like fully come back together until about 3 months. Like, so I wouldn't do this. And it wasn't until somebody literally sat me down and was like, I know you're really wanting to do this, but you really need to take care of this point of the body. And this is why. Like, I do need to know why.
Yeah.
Right. And
Same.
so I don't know. Very interesting. If you're a mama and you're going through it, just know it is only a chapter and it does pass, and you have to give yourself grace, because I do feel like, especially when it's the first time, you don't know if your body's going to shoot back. You
Hmm.
know, you don't know what's happening with your body. You don't understand it fully. You don't know how to actively recover. Like, I probably should have gone and seen like a pelvic floor therapist, which I didn't even know that was a thing until like a couple months ago, right? And so there's a ton to learn. Yeah, just I think just understanding the body a little bit more and where you're actually at, because they always say that you can be clear at what, like 6 weeks or eight
Hmm.
weeks, but that's not fully true in some cases. And just being understanding in that, like, fitness is definitely a journey.
For sure. And like everybody's so different.
So
And
different.
every pregnancy is so different too, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you've
Um,
been too. So I'm
yeah.
sure
I
like,
mean, they're night and day different pregnancies for sure.
yeah. And you like that can be so many factors. It could be your age, it could be where you're at, it could like
Hmm.
so many things. So I think the biggest thing is the grace. I wish, now that I know, and the thing is you don't know, right? Like, you don't know how your bodies are gonna react. But you can just give yourself a little bit more grace. Or like, if you know you're gonna start feeling a certain way during postpartum, and it sometimes the postpartum hormones can get a little scary. And so if you know that, if that comes, like, make a decision before, like, if I start thinking this way, I need to go outside
Hmm.
and go for a walk,
Hmm.
right? If I start thinking this way, I need to grab a bite to eat or go for a drive or just go walk around Target. Like, you sometimes you don't need to be like alone in your thoughts when like the postpartum hormones kick in. Um, or call a friend to just come sit with you and the baby for a little bit, right? So,
Right. I think that's honestly like it's commendable that you've come this far too. I think that says a lot about you over the last year because a lot of that one is showing up and that's like the hardest thing, I think. But then I would say over the top of that is the mindset, like you're saying, giving yourself grace and being willing to like know it takes time and being moving through the emotions. Not a
yeah,
lot
and
of people can do that.
yeah, I definitely think Riley on my podcast, she said it best. Like, when you're going through something, I think the biggest thing is like to sit and actually feel it,
Mhm.
right? There was so many times when I would go to Pilates, like postpartum. Like I think the roughest time was like I would say 4 to 7 months postpartum because that was a lot of the weight. Um, but also I was getting back to where I was feeling more comfortable to start doing different weights. But, you know, I go into this Pilates class and I'm 6 months postpartum with a floppy belly still or stretch marks or what have you. And I'm seeing all these girls like abs, skinny, fit, like just, you know, top of their game. And I just want to sit there and cry. And I'm like, I still feel like the weight. Like I can't do the push up like I normally could because I still feel this like weight because I'm 40, 50 pounds heavier still.
Mhm.
Right. And so sitting there and like comparing, and then sometimes like it wasn't about what I was thinking in the moment. It was just the consistency. Right. Like the consistency of like continuing to go, even though I wanted to sit in there and cry. Or
Mhm.
like I walk to my car and be like, "You're so fat, like you can't do this." But like I would go anyway because I was like, eventually it's gonna burn off. Eventually it's gonna get better. Like eventually, you know, I'll be where I'm at, but I won't be where I'm at until I do it consistently or until I like push myself to keep going.
Mhm.
Right. So yeah, you
No, I
can't be the best podcast until you have a couple of mistakes throughout it. So,
yeah, that's always my advice to just anyone on a fitness journey too, is that's what I learned is like the time's going to pass anyways. There's been so many times, like you said, even with a business or a podcast where you've thought like, oh, I thought about starting it. Now, if I would have started it when I thought about it, I would be, you know, a whole year in, or I would be down this much. Um, were you a dancer growing up? Like I'm curious your Pilates journey because I was not, and I've gone through the same like CrossFit to Pilates thing. And I am always giggling about how ungraceful, like how graceful I think I am, but what I look like really.
no one wants to watch me do Pilates, okay? So
Yeah.
that's just no, I'm so bad at it. No, it's funny you say that. I actually I was not so much of a dancer. I was actually a big musical theater nerd. So, I did musical theater from like the time I was 3 until high school. And so I'm not a dancer, but I'm an actor dancer, if that
Got it.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not good at it at all. I don't, but I think the thing is like, I go to a really good gym. Okay. If you, I think this goes for CrossFit, it goes for jujitsu, it goes for Pilates, it goes for yoga, it goes for anything that you want to do. Find a gym that you feel comfortable enough that you don't give a crap what anybody thinks. You got to get to that place where you're like, I don't give a crap. I showed up. Okay. Like I'm here. I might be weightlifting no weight today, but I'm still doing this motion because that's all that matters. And everybody else is there worried about themselves. No one's looking at you being like, oh, you don't flex your toe, or, you know, you look like a whale out of water. Like, no one cares. They're just glad that you're there to help push them to be there too. Right. So,
1000%.
I think if you find a good gym and you feel comfortable, also, I feel that the times that I was in my head thinking that everybody else was like watching me do something, I didn't get a good workout.
Mhm.
So, if you want a better workout, just really start focusing on your muscles, and then
Yeah.
you're gonna be like, "Oh, this weight actually does burn."
That's awesome. Do you notice like a big difference? For me, I noticed, and this is just getting older, like I'm 35. I found when I was doing consistently CrossFit workouts, I feel like my body almost felt a little inflamed. And now I'm getting to where like I like walking. I still do like I'll still do weight training. I like lifting weights, but then I'm incorporating Pilates into that and I just feel like my body doesn't feel so inflamed.
I have a completely different mindset about Pilates now that I'm really into it. I think it really is truly designed around the woman's body, right? Like we move so much more different. Now that I've done Pilates and I've had a baby, I understand my core so much different.
Yes. I wish I
I
would have found
finally
it sooner for my core.
Yes, because I did track and I did running and I did CrossFit and everybody like, "Oh, engage your core." I'm like, "I don't even know what that means." Like, no one even explains it. And I'll be honest, sometimes I still don't know what it means. But I will say certain workouts that you do during Pilates force you to understand where that base core or where that base muscle is coming from.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah. I do think that the Pilates is more designed for like a woman's body. Now there's guys that go to my class. There's probably like a handful that go every time. I also really enjoy the hot room over a regular room temperature room. Personally, I love to sweat and I love when I do hot Pilates, I feel like my muscles are way more engaged and ready. And I don't have a lot of time to myself now that I'm a mom and I'm working full time and I have like a side thing going on. And so I don't have a lot of time to go in and stretch and get completely warmed up. Like I have enough time to get to the class, do the class, and leave. So like I only have that 45 minutes to work out. And so I feel like that hot room really just like warms my muscles up so I can really get the workout. But
That's
I love
interesting.
it.
I've
I
never
will
done
push
that.
anybody to try it, and if they don't like it the first time, then you're not going enough. You need to do it at least like 5 or 6 times to really see the benefits of it. Um, and Annika, she talks really well about it. Like she does a really good job of explaining it way better than I am or I can. But I would tell anybody like go and try it, but don't just try it once, right? Like try it maybe 3 or 4 times and really see what it like feels like to get in your system.
Mhm.
It's kind of like the same thing. You know how when people like do the gluten test and then they like take gluten out of their system for 2 weeks and then they put it back in? Like it's almost like that same concept. Like you need to do something for 2 or 3 weeks and then take it out and see how you feel. And then you're probably going to keep going back to Pilates because you loved it that much.
I agree. That was me. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think the day would come." I was messaging my best friend because she's all about mat Pilates and she's who got me into it. And I'm like, I can't believe I was gonna say this, but like, I'm gonna do a Pilates workout today because I miss it. Like,
Yeah.
how did I
Well,
get here?
I don't know if you did the same, but I always thought CrossFit was like super tough, right? And
Hmm.
if I'm this like tough girl who shoots and hunts, then I need to do like CrossFit to
Yeah.
like be tough, to go out in the woods and, you know, prove to these guys that like I can do it too, which is like the completely wrong mindset. Like I don't think like that anymore. Um now I do things because it's what makes me happy or makes me feel good.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe that just comes with time or having a baby. I don't know, but you shouldn't. Who cares what anybody else thinks? Like, do something because you love it and because you feel good or like it brings you joy. And if it's not, then it's probably not your thing. Like, if you don't wake up every day thinking about it, or if you don't wake up every day like excited to go to the gym, maybe you're doing the wrong workout, or maybe you're doing reading the wrong book, or maybe you're doing the wrong career. Like, if it
Hmm.
doesn't fuel you, like life is like way too short. And maybe I've learned that a little bit with the baby and like how time works with him being one and like how fast that went. Like if you're not fully enjoying it or like pushing your limits or getting uncomfortable or learning something new, maybe you're not doing it right.
I think that's a beautiful spot to end at too, because that's such solid advice. You continue to like give out advice that just is so good for day to day, even just talking about events to CrossFit and then wrap it all into life, man.
Dude, I mean, I just think it's just a big learning process and I can sound inspirational and I know a lot of people have been like, "Oh, your Instagram's like so inspiring," but I do have a lot of hard moments and I do have a lot of hard times and do like have a lot of lessons I've learned all the way through the process. So, if I had to recap it, any process that you do is going to be like event planning, right? Like you're never going to see the behind the scenes. You're never going to see the work. You're never going to see what it took to like load a trailer or do the logistics or brew the coffee behind the scenes or no one's ever going to see the behind the scenes. They're only going to see what you post or what your successes are. But just know that they're there. And it takes a lot of hard work to get to a final product. So, but you can do it. And if you put in the hard work and the grit, the rewards will come.
I totally agree. Where
Yes.
can everybody find you, Raegan? Let us know what events you have coming up, any adventures.
Oh
Pimp
my gosh.
yourself out.
I feel like I'm still trying to refuel from 2024 because 2024 was a really crazy year. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram. That's mainly where I post everything. Raeyne Company is my website, Raeyne. That's my website. You can find the podcast on there. You can find anything like that, but mainly Instagram. That's mainly like my main force of communication. I do LinkedIn a little bit, but yeah, right now we're just, we got some big things in the works for event planning for Black Rifle. I started my podcast so that I can talk to people like along the way. So those drop every Wednesday. But yeah, we're just kind of all over the place. I am in Utah, but I do travel to Texas all the time. So we'll have to get together because I'm in Utah.
Very cool. Yeah, definitely. And remind everyone where they can find your podcast too, so that they can go back and listen to. We referenced a few episodes that are fantastic.
Yeah, so podcasts right now I have on Spotify and YouTube, and then I'll be asking Brittany for advice.
I'll give you what I can for sure. Like we were just talking about lessons along the way.
Yeah, but YouTube and Spotify. So
And the podcast is Ready to Rain.
Ready to Rain. And Raeyne is Raeyne. So it's my first and my middle name, Raegan Lane.
And then I'll link everything in the description. And I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me. It was fun.
I appreciate you having me on, and
Of course.
I can't wait to see you soon.
Yes, you too.